All right, good morning, beautiful people. It's another sunny day here in my spotless mind. It's snowing outside here in Fairbanks. I hear it's snowing down in Wasilla too, so it's another beautiful day in Alaska. Thank you for joining us for the 2021 Solar Tour. This is actually going to be our first statewide virtual tour. So we've only got two locations, but this is a part of starting to growth, and we'll be able to focus on some technical stuff as well as some financing stuff, and these are very important. So I got a little short video for folks and to give you a chance to get into the room here. Give me just a second to get this going. So we're going to start off with a word from our sponsor, Solar on Earth. Hold on here. You're not going to be able to see that. I got to share my screen here.
What's community solar?
You've probably seen a field of solar panels. This collection of panels is called a solar farm or garden. Some of these solar farms are designated as community solar, meaning that they collect clean, renewable energy to help the environment and save you money. And there's no out-of-pocket, no annual fees, and nothing to install on your roof.
Who benefits from community solar?
The short answer is everyone. Solar is a clean, renewable energy source that reduces our dependence on fossil fuels, which emit harmful greenhouse gases. And because community solar farms are local, we buy less power from out-of-state sources, helping farmers make money from unused land and create local installation and maintenance jobs, all boosting the local economy.
It sounds too good to be true. Who pays for all of this?
Community solar is part of the state's clean energy initiatives. These programs are funded by you through your utility bill. Community solar allows you to benefit from these contributions by reducing your cost for electricity, all while going green.
How do I get involved with community solar?
Solar on Earth can walk you through the process of subscribing to a community solar farm in your area. You'll continue to get your electricity through your current utility company in the same way, but you'll be helping to contribute to a cleaner environment and you'll start saving. It's that simple. Sign up today and help the environment. Save money and boost your local economy, all without taking money out of your pocket. Solar on Earth, simply bringing the power of solar down to Earth through community solar.
Okay, thank you for Solar on Earth for making this happen here.
Me, Mike. He's 57
I got
years
one more thing to settle, get people settled in here.
old.
Some of you may have seen this before, but one of the things I really like about the solar tours is the fact that we hear plenty of things about the problem. We get to hear about some of the solutions.
Do you have one of these? Of course not. This thing is 5 years old. Now everyone's got one of these. Can you imagine how much genius and focus it took to turn a music player into a handheld computer phone, GPS, remote control for everything in life in just 5 years? Seriously, the thousands of people who made this thing had to solve thousands of problems that literally could not have been solved 5 years ago. That's what people can do when they're motivated to find solutions to problems. But the problems we've been busy solving are not the problems that most need solving. So much focus has gone into faster, cheaper, newer, that we've actually lost ground on things like safer, healthier, and more fair. It's as if we're getting better and better at playing the wrong game. And in many ways, this system is a lot like a game, but with very high stakes. Just like a game, our economy was designed by people to get everyone to play by certain rules. And like a game, it comes with instructions telling us what the goal is. Think about the last time you played a new game. Remember? The first thing you did was find out what it means to win, and that guides every decision you make along the way. So naturally, the solutions most people are working on pursue this game's simple goal. And that goal is more. More money being spent, more roads being built, more malls being opened, more stuff. That's what economists call growth. So we take all the money spent on stuff that makes life better and all the money spent on stuff that makes life worse, and we add it together into one big number called GDP. We're told that a bigger GDP means we're winning. So it's the number that thousands of rules and laws are designed to increase. But there's a big difference between more kids in school or more kids in jail, more windmills or more coal-fired power plants, more super efficient public trains or more gas wasted in traffic jams. Duh! But in this game of more, they're counted the same. Now, we can't change a game this dumb one rule or one player at a time. The problem is the goal itself. We need solutions that change that. What if we built this game around the goal of better? Better education, better health, better stuff, a better chance to survive on this planet. That's what we all want, right? So shouldn't that be what winning means? Changing the goal of the entire economy is a huge task. Of course, we can't do it all at once. But when we focus on game-changing solutions, we gradually make it possible for a new game to be played. To do that, we have to be able to tell the difference between a game-changing solution or just a new way to play that old game of more. For example, let's look at two solutions to one of the many problems we face today: the scourge of plastic packaging that everyone knows is a disaster for the planet, especially the oceans. And here are two groups of people with very different ideas of solutions to the plastics problem. These guys decide that enough is enough, and they start by launching a citizen campaign to ban the plastic bag in their community. These guys have a different solution. They start a business that gives people gift cards to buy stuff if they recycle their plastic waste. Both of these are happening right now, but only one of them changes the game. The gift card solution does keep some plastic out of landfills and incinerators, but it creates more plastic by encouraging people to buy more stuff. Even worse, it teaches that more consumption is the right reward for being a good citizen, making it even harder to think outside that old game box. The ban the bag solution is harder to achieve, but it's a game changer. Why? Well, by volunteering their time, these citizens are declaring that there's something more important to them than just earning and spending more. To win this campaign, these citizens are going to have to team up with forward-thinking businesses offering alternatives to throwaway plastic packaging. They're going to have to build power to fight back against the American Chemistry Council, which lobbies for the companies that make all that plastic junk. And they're going to have to get out and talk to their neighbors and friends, inspiring yet more people to begin to question the old game. This is exactly what's happening in towns and cities all across the world, and they're winning. But can banning a few million plastic bags transform the goal of the game? By itself, no. But in combination with millions of others working on game-changing solutions that they care about, yes. Together, these solutions are beginning to turn the tide. As people build power to change the game, their citizen muscles grow. They work to ensure the local solutions they create get copied and scaled up. And when they see these solutions getting blocked by corporations with way too much influence, they team up with other solutionaries to fight for a real democracy by the people, for the people. Gift cards will never do that, but thousands of citizen campaigns can. Whenever I'm asked to join in on a solution, I want to know if it's transformational. Will it change the goal? To figure it out, I use the word goal. I want to know that it, G, gives people more power, taking power back from corporations to build democracy. O, opens people's eyes to the truth that once basic needs are met, happiness and well-being don't come from buying more stuff, but from our communities, our health, and a sense of purpose. A, accounts for all the costs it creates, including the toll it takes on people and the planet. In other words, it internalizes costs instead of externalizing them, as most businesses do today. L lessens the enormous wealth gap between those who can't even meet their basic needs and those who consume way more than their fair share. When I see a solution that does all that, or can be redesigned to, I'm in. And they're popping up everywhere. Like the Evergreen cooperatives in Cleveland, where worker owners are running green businesses. a laundry, a solar company, and a super productive urban farm that are healthy and safe. They provide secure jobs to people that the old game has left behind. We all know we need to get businesses out of our democracy, but cooperatives go even further and bring democracy into the businesses. Sustainable, democratic, and equitable, that's a game changer. Or in Caponori, a town in Italy where local citizens, working with businesses and governments, are not just seeking to manage waste better, but they're questioning the very inevitability of waste. They're promoting solutions to waste, not with expensive techno fixes, but by working together as a community to reclaim compost for the soil, to find reusable substitutes for disposable products, and then to put discarded material to good use. They've already reduced some waste streams by 82% while creating jobs and building social fabric. And how about the new trend of collaborative consumption, formerly known as sharing? Sharing may sound like the theme of a Barney song, but think about it. It's a huge challenge to the old game. It gets us off the treadmill of more, conserves resources, gives people access to stuff they otherwise couldn't afford, and builds community. What's it look like? Bike share programs in major cities. Online platforms that let us share everything from our cars to our homes to camping gear. In my town, the public library system lends out tools. There's just no reason that every house needs its own power drill, creme brulee torch, scanner, wheelbarrow, bike pump when we can share. As transformational solutions like these gain traction, we will reach a tipping point if we keep focused on the new goal of better. Without a new goal, all the work we're doing to build a better future will be A, not enough, and B, really hard. Too much genius and focus will continue to go to solving problems like iPhone battery life, while the problems that threaten human life spin out of control. 5 years ago, when we made the Story of Stuff, we started building a community of people who sensed that something was really wrong with this old game. We agreed there was a problem. Now it's time to build the solutions. Solutions that won't just change a few of the rules, but will change the entire game. Want to help? Come on, let's do it.
All right, thank you. That was educational. I've always enjoyed watching it. So you said, Colleen, that was the first time you've seen it?
Yeah, that was the first time I seen it. Although I have to be honest, we had some folks come by for the solar tour, so I wasn't totally listening in on that while they're here.
That's not a problem. It's recorded. So anyway, one of the sites we have is down in Wasilla, and Colleen Fisk is going to be our host. So we'll turn that over to her. I don't think I need to share the screen. You can just use your camera to show us what's going on and give us a tour. So
yeah. Okay, thanks, Robert. Yeah, so I'm Colleen Fisk. I work for a nonprofit called Renewable Energy Alaska Project. I'm the education director there. So normally I'm doing like K through 12 outreach and teacher trainings, but also, of course, in my personal life, I try to be as sustainable as possible. So I have our solar system here. And the one thing I do want to mention about the solar system too is that, and a lot of my work looks at this, the curriculum that I work with, AK Energy Smart, we focus on efficiency first. So you always want to start out with that efficiency first, have a well-insulated house, have your LEDs, make sure you have everything as efficient as possible. And then we have our solar system. So I'm going to flip my camera around here. And right now it's a little bit of snow here, not as much as you up in Fairbanks right now, Robert. But we have our 6 solar panels on top of the roof, which we haven't swept off yet. Be able to do that. And then we have the 6 solar panels on the side of the house. And so my partner, Colin, who's chatting with the folks who stopped by, so I'll leave him be here for a minute, is the one who installed those. So he was able to purchase those himself and then get those installed. He's an engineer and had a certified electrician check everything and get that hooked up to our utility, Matanuska Electric Association. And then we send that electricity into the grid. And if we use more than what we make in a month, we get a little bit of money back from them. Most of the time, because we have some big electrical loads in the house, specifically, we each have an electric vehicle that we charge here. There hasn't been too often where we've actually produced more than we've used. There's been a couple times, and it was just installed at the end of July, so we haven't had a full year with it yet. But there has been sometimes with a sunny day, we haven't charged our electric cars and we've been able to produce more than we've actually used. So that's been really nice. And I can show you, Colin, you can say hi to the Joy, getting a little solar tour here. So here's a little bit more up close. This is nice. We have these solar panels for the winter time. We don't get that. You have a little bit better of an angle from the sun with those, and we don't have to actually, oops, it says low power mode. I don't know if I lost my camera there. There we go. So, if we haven't gotten up to sweep those off like we haven't on these ones yet, then that makes a difference able to have that. And in the winter time and even in the springtime, we got snow on the ground. You have that reflection off of the snow. That's nice to be able to capture that onto there. So other thing I'm going to show you here, I realized my battery was so low on my phone, sorry. We have a little orchard. We have some compost over there. And there's our horses. we have a little orchard, have some compost. And then, like I said, we have our electric vehicles. So I'll show you really quick. Colin and I each have a Chevy Bolt, so it's with a B, fully electric vehicles. Here's his sitting out here. And we have a heated garage. And so that's a nice thing for us in Alaska in the wintertime is that we're able to take advantage of that. Because otherwise in the wintertime, the battery has to use a little bit of energy to keep itself warm if it's sitting outside. And it still has that a little bit when you're driving. That uses a little bit of energy to keep itself warm. Because we have this heated garage, we're able to leave it plugged in, and we have a 220 outlet in the garage so that we can charge it a little bit faster. Can get to a full charge in 4 to 8 hours, depending on how low the battery is. And so that's really nice. That's something like, if you have a welder, that's that same type of outlet, a welder or a dryer or something like that, that uses that same amount of electricity. They call it a level 2 charger. And that's really nice for us, especially since we both have electric vehicles. Both, and we're able from here in Wasilla, we're able to get to, like I drove to Anchorage and back on Thursday and, only used about half of my battery. So that works out really well. Do that until we get some more charging stations. So sorry, I know I got a little sidetracked there on the electric vehicles. This is supposed to be the solar tour.
No, part of it. This is definitely part of it because
Yeah.
you started off with the whole conservation thing, and yeah, that's totally good. But you've changed the game there because now you've got an additional load, which is a variable load, and it's covering transportation. So it's part of the whole mix. So thank you very much for including it.
Yeah. I mean, that's that whole thing with beneficial electrification. I mean, our neighbors who are here checking out our system are talking about like, oh, we have some electric heat and, and they're talking about it. It's like, oh, well, you need a more efficient electric system and get some solar on your house. And that's what you talk about, that beneficial electrification, because the less you can use those fossil fuels, whether it's from diesel or gasoline in your car or the natural gas for what most of us use for heating here, then the better that is. And as the grid just gets more and more renewable electricity, just keep reducing that fossil fuel use. It's great.
Well, I have tons of questions, but I hear that your battery's running kind of low. So I know on the National Solar Tour site, you gave them a video to upload for today. So if people want to check out more of what's going on with your system, they can find that there, right? That'll be nationalsolartour.org, and they're the main sponsor, because what we're part of right now is a whole national tour. It's going on all over the country. And this is really important to the movement of raising awareness and education, because it's great to educate the kids, but adults are the ones that pay the bills. And so they know, once they know the options are out there and how affordable they are. So I have two quick questions for you. If you weren't using or didn't have the electric cars, how many solar panels or what size of a system would you need to go completely off grid to be able to provide 100% of your power?
That's a good question. So with this, we have a 4 kilowatt system. And I will say, I guess I'll start off, I haven't done the exact math on that. Right now we have a 4 kilowatt system. And like I said, that was producing more than what we needed on some sunny days. We would probably need at least, if we didn't have our electric cars, probably still need close to double that for the days that we still use a lot. This is the other electric load that we use in the winter time here with our hot tub. So, with that hot tub, with, like the water heater for the horses, probably close double that for biggest, yeah, maybe not quite double that, but if we wanted to do that completely, but that would then, if we wanted to be off grid, we would have to use batteries too, instead of going into the grid. But yeah, something like that be good.
So the second question is, now, are you just using PV, or have you considered, or are you using any hot water?
We don't have any solar hot water right now. That's not something that we have talked about. It'd be interesting to look into that, or maybe more of an on-demand water heater maybe would be a little bit for us, because we're using the electricity. If we had a bigger system, or as I said, the grid gets more renewable, then we could potentially use that.
Or, one of the things that's great about Alaska when it gets really cold is to have it, have a nice hot tub, or, have a heated swimming pool. Have a heated swimming pool for the summertime.
That's what I'm saying. We got our hot tub.
You're on track there. So anyway, I know your battery's running low. I appreciate you taking the time. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the folks at home or watching?
I'll just give a quick plug for my organization if you guys are interested in more about renewable energy in the state and what's going on, especially on the policy and education side, is a lot of what we work on. So you can check out our website, realaska.org, and we have resources on there like the Renewable Energy Atlas of Alaska, Energy Saving Tips for Alaska, which is on the efficiency side. A lot of information about what we going on, and including a virtual speaker series. So check us out.
This is your first year on the Solar Tour.
It is, yeah, because I did record a video of my electric car last summer that I put on there, but this is the first year we've actually had solar. So
great.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I look forward to coordinate with you more, and I thank you, folks, and all right, thank you for stopping by. We'll chat again soon.
I'm gonna charge up my phone and hopefully be able to hop back on later here in a little bit.
Okay, if not, like I said, the video will be recorded and uploaded to our site, so you'll be able to watch then, and I'll definitely make sure to send you a link. But thank you again.
Thank you, Robert. Have a great day.
Yep. Okay, so folks, the next step here is to talk about one of the most fundamental things about solutions, and that's how we fund all this stuff. Because we can talk about all the technology we want, we can have all the great ideas we want, but if we can't fund it, then we're just running in circles. And frankly, we can't afford to do that. These tours are designed to help provide people with options and opportunities for solutions. We're not here just talking. We're not here just killing time. So with that in mind, I'm going to see if I can get my computer here to cooperate. And I got another little video for you here. I do someplace. Okay, give me just a second here, folks. I had this all queued up. It's all right. We get it all here. There's one. And I've provided a link for this too for folks.
With our goal to
So my name is Lindsay Harmon. I'm the marketing manager at Collective Sun, and I'm so happy to have you here this morning or afternoon, depending on where you're tuning in from. You're joining us for our webinar, the Sun for All Solar Fund, a $10 million investment in nonprofits. Thank you so much for joining us. To start off, I'm going to introduce our speakers. We will have Lee Barkin, who's the Chief Community Officer here at Collective Sun, Kathleen Mead, who's the Philanthropic Advisor for BeQuest Foundation, and of course, Michelle Lambert, who's the Chief Financial Officer for Vista Community Clinic. Just to go over the agenda very briefly, this is what we'll be talking about as we go through the webinar. You'll meet BeQuest Foundation and learn about how they're involved with the Sun for All Solar Fund. You'll learn about Collective Sun and how we are involved with the Sun for All Solar Fund. You'll learn all about the Sun for All Solar Fund and the many benefits. And then Michelle will take it away with explaining how the Vista Community Clinic chose to go solar with the Sun for All Solar Fund. And then at the end, we will have a Q&A. So during the webinar, if you have any questions at all, please be sure to hop into the Q&A and drop any questions you have. We will be going through all of them at the end of the webinar. And if we don't get to all of them, we'll be following up with you later. So at this time, I'm going to pass the mic over to Kathleen Mead.
Great. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to begin by sharing with you who the Bequest Foundation is. Next slide, please. The Bequest Foundation is a family foundation that I was lucky to join about 3 years ago. The mission of the foundation is to fight climate change and the climate crisis by funding projects, and we partner with organizations to reduce carbon emissions, expand the use of renewable energy, and advocate for policy change. While we are very interested in project work with our philanthropic fund, we always and also understand that advocacy is an important component of being able to move forward with our goal to reduce carbon emissions. We predominantly work in 3 areas, or 4 areas really. The Sun for All Solar Fund, which you'll learn about today, but we also have a fund and interest in YIGBY, which is work that we're doing to ensure that there is affordable housing for predominantly the homeless or at the risk or those at risk of becoming homeless. We also have an EV loan program that is helping low to middle income residents get into their first electric vehicles. And those electric vehicles, as you might expect, are going to help with the climate crisis, but also improve the environment, the air in which they, the communities in which they live. And then again, we talked about our climate advocacy work. Next slide, please. Now, why did we become interested in the Solar Impact Fund? Well, the Bequest Foundation is a grant maker, and we do make gifts of money. But we recognized that impact investing is an opportunity for us to think about making loans or recoverable grants that would be able to take the place of grants. And the reason that we do that is that there is really frequently a measurable double or triple bottom line in projects like solar installation. We can actually make a loan. We can find that there are immediate cost savings to the owner of the building for the solar installation. And we can also show that there are actual benefits to the environment. And if you go out to our website, bequestfoundation.org, you'll see we actually have a carbon tracker that is measuring the impact of our solar investments. We also recognize that it will preserve grant money for projects that cannot be funded through impact investing. There are a lot of projects that will not have that double or triple bottom line return. And so we like to preserve our grant monies for those purposes and use the program-related investment funds or impact investing for projects that actually show that triple bottom line or double bottom line. What that allows us to do is to recycle the funds so that when we make a loan to a nonprofit to put solar on their building and those monies are repaid, we can then make more loans to more nonprofits in the true pay it forward model. So recycling of funds really enables us to use our philanthropic dollars and make more of an impact in the market. Next slide, please. Oh, I think at this point, I'm going to introduce Lee Barkin. Lee is going to talk with us about who is Collective Sun.
Well, welcome everybody. Collective Sun is a solar financing company that works exclusively with nonprofits to help them develop and finance their solar projects. More broadly, we work to engage values-aligned capital to solve social and environmental challenges. We've done 160 projects with nonprofits all across the country at 20 different states, totaling over $60 million worth of projects with all manner of nonprofit organizations and tax-exempt organizations, from houses of worships to schools to Boys and Girls Clubs and YMCAs and animal shelters and veterans organizations and food banks and every kind of nonprofit you can imagine. There's so many great organizations across the country that really are the backbone of our society. And we work to serve them and promote their social and mission agenda with solar projects. Next slide, please. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the Sun for All Solar Fund. Next slide. So what we've learned in working with nonprofits over the years is that nonprofits love solar, and nonprofits are solar champions. They are deeply embedded in their communities. They want to promote environmental benefits, but there's financing challenges. Traditional lenders have not been great at figuring out solutions to serve nonprofit organizations. So the Sun for All Solar Fund was created by Collective Sun and Bequest Foundation and other impact investors to serve this challenge with nonprofits who really want to go solar, but don't have access to traditional financing or have other challenges. And you'll notice at the bottom, we talk a lot about savings from day one. For the finance folks in the room, sometimes you'll hear that called cash flow positive. But let's dig in a little deeper and look at what that really means. Next slide, please. So let's take a simple example of a solar project that costs $500,000, $500,000. The Sun for All Solar Fund has two basic components to it. There's going to be some tax benefits, and we have structures that can utilize these tax benefits. We're not going to do a deep dive on that in this conversation, but there are tax benefits there. That's going to be a portion of the cost or cover a portion of the cost. And then we're going to offer a loan for the remainder of the cost. And these two things put together are going to cover 100% of the upfront cost. So there's no upfront dollars that the nonprofit is going to have to come up with. In this example, we're using a 12% discount. Now keep in mind, that number could be different. When we scheduled this webinar for September 30th, little did we know that we were facing a looming government shutdown at midnight tonight, or a House vote on an infrastructure bill or a reconciliation bill. This number might change. So if you're watching the web archive of this presentation, 12% might be different. It might be 15%, it might even be 30%. So give us a call or send us an email and we will catch you up to date on the most recent policy activity and changes that are happening as we speak. But just for example, we'll say 12% or more. If you take a $500,000 project, that means we're going to be able to lower that cost by $60,000. Well, what about the remaining $440,000? Most nonprofits don't have that laying around. And the challenge with a solar asset is that there's this cost up front, but it creates savings over time and it generates benefits over decades. And so that $440,000 we're going to provide in the form of a loan. So instead of paying $440,000 up front, the nonprofit in this example would be paying $52,000 per year. Next slide, please. So saving money from day one means that if that loan payment is going to cost you $52,000 a year, there had better be more savings than that from the beginning. So in this hypothetical example, we have a $57,000 utility savings. And that creates savings from day one, that $5,000. So if you look at that year number one, there's a little green bar there. That represents the $5,000. But there's a couple things I want you to take away from looking at this chart. I mean, the first thing that should grab your attention is look at what happens in year 11. You see that huge jump. What's happening there is that the loan is paid off, but the savings keep coming from the solar system. That means it's like a solar endowment. You're getting savings year after year after year, 25 years plus. And then the other thing you might notice is that there's little incremental changes. So even in those first 10 years, that loan payment stays the same. That $52,000 is locked in. So you're paying the same amount. But everybody else who doesn't have solar, their utility bills are slowly going up every year, little bits at a time. And those add up a lot year after year. When you look at this graph, it may be savings from day one, that's great. But look at that 25-year period. If you add up all that green, that's a lot of green. The lifetime savings are very, very significant. Next slide, please. All right, so the Sun for All Solar Fund is basically, these three components. First, we're going to do a technical review and project feasibility study. And there's going to be another slide on that later, so I'll do a deeper dive on what exactly that means. But we're going to help you through this process. Number two is we're going to help you figure out the tax benefit and monetize as much of that tax benefit as possible and pass it through. And then the last thing is we're going to offer a 10-year loan at 3.5%. Now, I'm very excited to announce in this webinar that we have fully funded the $10 million, the next $10 million of the Sun for All Solar Fund, and that application is now open. So we are funding projects today. Next slide, please. Great. So the fine print. So I love getting into the details of the fine print because the more you look at this, the better it gets. The interest and payment holiday means that when the project kicks off, the nonprofit pays nothing until the solar system is up and running and generating savings. And that's important because without a fund like this, if you just went and got a traditional loan, you're paying interest on all those milestone payments to the solar installer during that construction period. And that period can be many months and sometimes longer. These are often involved projects over a long period of time. What's actually happening here is that we are making a grant to your nonprofit for the interest that is being accrued during that period, so you don't have to pay. And the payments are being delayed so that you don't have to incur any cost until the project's generating savings for you. Next, there's no origination fees, there's no sign-up fees, there's no cost that's marked up. There is no additional cost to participate. And then lastly, which the finance folks love, is there's no collateral equipment requirements beyond the solar equipment. So we're not attaching to real estate. It's not a traditional bank loan where they say, what are your assets that you're going to use as collateral, and putting other buildings and things at risk. So there's a lot of benefit beyond just the numbers and the way that this is structured to be very nonprofit friendly. Next slide, please. All right, let's talk about the technical review and project feasibility study. So when we get started, we have to understand, what is the scope of this project? And we realize nonprofits are busy. There's a lot of things that nonprofits, a lot of priorities and a lot of work, important mission work that's getting done in communities. And there isn't always time to stop and, build out, technical reviews. So we step in, roll up our sleeves, and we get, your address and utility bill. And from there, we are building out an entire system design. We're building out the optimal system sizing. How much power is the solar system going to generate? And more importantly, how much savings are going to be available? Now, I really want to key in on this concept of optimal. We're doing this through the lens of how to best serve the nonprofit. What is the optimal system size? Well, some solar installers, and not all, will look at a roof and say filling out every single square inch with panels, that's optimal because that's what's optimal for them. But for a nonprofit, the optimal system size might be smaller. For a nonprofit, optimal system size may be different, and a lot of parameters and factors may be different. Looking at projected savings, it's really important to estimate conservatively what those numbers might look like. And so there's a lot of factors and technical considerations that we're performing with the lens of the nonprofit's best interest and what is the best ROI for the nonprofit. And that's really important because it's more than just getting a loan. You're getting a partner. You're getting a solar Sherpa, if you will, to join you on this journey as you climb the solar mountain. Next slide, please. The Sun for All Solar Fund's not new. We did pilot projects in 20 and 21, already $5.7 million worth of projects. These were started locally in San Diego, and now we are expanding nationwide. Next slide, please. The eligibility requirements require, of course, a 501c3 entity. You have to be able to secure, or maybe you already have 3 bids. I'll talk a little bit on the next slide about why that's important. And then we're deeply interested in social and economic equity and the role that your nonprofit plays in advancing the ecosystem. Next slide, please. So the reason all those things are important is because we have an independent loan review committee, and they look at a variety of decisions that's very different than just how a bank would evaluate these. And so I want to highlight these 3 areas that are being looked at. The first is the nonprofit social impact. So what is the nonprofit doing? Typically, nonprofits are great at telling this story, so they should be very comfortable and familiar to provide this kind of information. The second is the financial position. So does the nonprofit have the ability to repay the loan? Well, as we talked about before, these projects, because we've done this technical review, we are funding projects that save money for nonprofits from day one. That is the design of the program. So that looking at the financial position also helps us in that evaluation. And then lastly, the solar project economics themselves. Not all solar projects are created equally. And so the reason we want to see a robust competitive bidding process, and it's helpful, is that if you can, secure aggressive competitive bids, that's going to make the economics better. And don't worry, if you don't have 3 bids or you don't know any solar installers, we can help you through that process, and we will help support getting those 3 bids. And it's important to note we don't have a horse in that race, so we can be very helpful in supporting that journey. But ultimately, there's parts you can control of the solar project economics. We realize there's parts you can't, like what direction your building is facing and the orientation of the panels. But we're going to understand and develop, some preliminary assessment to help you understand how to make these decisions and hold your hand through this process. But the independent loan review committee is looking at these 3 different components: the social impact, the financial position of the nonprofit, and then the solar project economics themselves, how attractive those are. Next slide, please. All right, and with that, I will hand it over to Michelle from the Vista Community Clinic.
Hello, everybody. I'm so glad that we're able to share this amazing program with you guys this morning. And just wanted to start out by talking a little bit about who we are. So Vista Community Clinic was founded actually almost 50 years ago in 1972 here in Vista, California, where our largest flagship site is, with the mission of providing critically needed health services to underserved populations in San Diego, North County. And from our initial location, which was in the basement of a local animal shelter, we have come a long way over these past 49 years, growing in the communities that we serve to become really the healthcare safety net for the uninsured, for the needy in our community, providing access to high quality health services that all people need and deserve. Today, VCC is recognized as a key regional health provider with 10 state-of-the-art health centers in San Diego, Riverside, and Orange County communities, and we serve almost 70,000 patients every year. So what are we about? Well, we focus on all aspects of the health and well-being of the communities we serve. Patients of all ages and life stages, they are encouraged to access our care, which includes traditional healthcare services such as adult and pediatric medicine, dental care, behavioral health services, and then certain specialty services, but really goes beyond services outside the delivery of healthcare. We have a number of health education programs for our patients and our communities. We offer insurance enrollment and social support. We have several youth programs, and we even have a medical assistance training program. And then obviously our positive impact for the community has been even more evident over the last 18 months with the coronavirus pandemic. We've been involved in COVID prevention and treatment in many aspects, including not only the traditional services you would expect, testing, immunizations, and the pneumococcal treatments, but we've also been assisting the people in our communities endure the non-healthcare related impacts of the pandemic within partnerships with both government and private entities. So that partnership aspect really moves us into what, how did we become actually Sun for All's first, I believe, nonprofit client for this wonderful program. So how did we get interested in solar and renewable energy and sustainability? Well, we're in the business of health. We've actually been interested in solar for some time from both an environmental impact perspective as well as an organizational health perspective. And recognizing the positive impact that solar could have on both of those things, we actually performed back in 2015 an analysis on our 2 largest energy using sites. At that time, we decided to move forward with solar energy at our administrative office here in Vista. That was a smaller project and one that our board of directors felt comfortable just paying for with some capital reserves. We also had a very strong desire to implement solar at our flagship clinic site here in Vista, but the cost involved and then the analysis that the energy savings would actually be somewhat limited both served to delay that project. But in 2019, we were introduced to this program from Sun for All. And what they did is they came in and designed a project that actually overcame both those barriers and resulted in a slam dunk approval by our board of directors. So with the project structure, as Lee and Kathleen have described, which include the grant or donation aspect, being able to receive some of the benefit of solar tax credit savings, which as a non-for-profit, we could not take advantage of on our own. And then the low cost simplified loan for the remaining cost of the project. We were able to move into being able to unlock this project we put on hold, and we experienced cost savings from the get-go. And really, I have to say that it was probably one of the easiest capital spending decisions we've ever made, and one that we look forward to hopefully getting to experience at some of our other locations. As a fairly large organization, we use a lot of power to ensure that our services remain available, and having the ability to do that while lessening our impact on the environment and lowering our costs was the right decision to make. Additionally, we really consider our part in the community, and with a vested interest in our youth, we want to make sure that we're doing all that we can to leave behind a world that is healthy and stable for future generations. Couple that with, as a CFO, of course, my focus is to leave behind a healthcare organization that's as financially stable as possible. And this whole project actually has been a winner all around. So as for the specifics, financial specifics of our project, you can see them up there on the screen. We have an amazing estimated simplified payback period of less than 5 years. You can see there the total cost of our project. And even after our loan payments, we are experiencing, the forecast was that we would experience about $15,500 in year 1 net of our loan repayment. And I have to tell you that actually our savings are going to be better than that. In the month of August alone, we experienced electricity savings of over $15,000. So it's really been a great project, and you can see there this may mean a lot more to all of you who know a lot about electricity, but that seems like a lot of kilowatts that we will save over the lifespan of our project. The last thing that I would want to talk about is just the relationship that we have had with Sun for All, Collective Sun, Bequest. Throughout my career, I've really been an advocate of working with people who are the experts and who not only have the interests of their organizations in mind, which of course is important, but come forth with a shared desire of the benefit of the organization that I'm representing. So we have really experienced the benefit of great collaborative efforts and a shared desire from everyone for the most benefit for everyone involved. And what we found is that this partnership really has been a partnership. The perfect blend of benefit for us, which includes this value add really into perpetuity, excuse me, which ultimately flows down to our patients and our communities, but as well as benefit for the environment. So our solar experience truly has helped us to free up funding for new programs and has helped us to really live out our mission. So that is my presentation. And there is a picture, if you see down there in the left-hand kind of bottom corner, you see that our project involved solar panels engineered both on the top of our parking structure as well as the bottom mid-right solar panels in our parking lot. And this innovative design is one of the reasons that we were able to experience a greater level of energy savings than we had originally looked at 5 or 6 years ago. And Sun for All really helped us every step of the way, getting the governmental approvals that we needed to move forward with these projects. And a funny add-on, those solar panels on top of our parking structure, we actually held a big event on top of our parking structure, kind of to the right of the solar panels. It's bigger than it looks. And the solar panels actually ended up providing us this great shady area. So we experienced an unexpected benefit of having our parking lot shaded. Our employees who park up there really appreciate it as well.
Was there anything, Lee and Kathleen, that you wanted to chat with Michelle about at this time?
No, I just want to thank you, Michelle, for that overview. This has been, as Michelle's pointed out, number one, it was our first project. It was a big project, and we learned a lot together. And as Michelle pointed out, we really see this as an opportunity to be truly partners with you and your nonprofit. Ultimately, the best benefit is when a CFO like Michelle says that our cost savings really accrue back to the clients that they serve and help support other programs. So thank you so much, Michelle.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, guys.
I actually did have a question, Michelle, and I notice we have a lot of great questions lined up in the Q&A, which I'll go through in just a second. But real quickly, I had mentioned early on that most nonprofits don't have those funds in reserves. And that's not always true. Sometimes nonprofits do have those funds available, but there's other impediments. Maybe they're not comfortable with certain reserve levels, or there's different factors that are involved. Can you share a little bit more about what your experience with that was? And
Absolutely.
Maybe for other nonprofits who may have the funds available, but not sure, or other factors or considerations they might be going through?
Right. So we are the benefit of having a fairly healthy reserve account. But really, when we're evaluating use of those monies, we want to look at both opportunity costs and then what's on the horizon. So at the time, our board decided not to move forward with the Vail Terrace project. We were in the midst of a lot of uncertainty over the future of the Affordable Care Act and what that might do to our reimbursement structure, and made a conscious decision to not outlay those reserves because we wanted to have them there should we need them to fund our ongoing operations until, you know, we figured out how to handle any changes that came. We all know that that didn't happen, but at the same time, we've been able to set aside the reserves we might have used for the solar project to actually move forward with other expansion projects. As we speak, we're in the midst of expanding the facility that you're looking at, not in terms of a square footage factor, but we are converting some of our administrative operational support space into 9 new exam rooms to really help serve our senior population. We've been able to move some of our administrative folks over to our administrative building that I work out of on the other side of town. And we have bought a brand new, well, the building isn't new, but it's new to us, a location up in Lake Elsinore in Riverside County. The location we have had there for the past, I think it's 5 years, is completely at its max. We have a lot of demand that we're not able to fill because of the limitations of the square footage of that site. So we have purchased a building that we're going to be renovating up there, which will almost triple our square footage. And we're actually looking at solar, working with you guys to put solar into that project from the get-go at the design phase, which will be great.
And as a CFO, you come across a lot of financial transactions and loans. How did this compare in terms of both interest rate? How's the interest rate compared to other options out there, and also the simplicity and ease of the transaction? I mean, it's essentially an unsecured loan, but in terms of the documents, compared to other experiences you've had going through different loan transactions, what was that like? Is there anything there you can share?
Certainly. So I've actually seen both sides of the scale, right? Loans that are very hard to get done, that have limitations that you kind of find out after the fact, to our loan arrangement with under this program. You say too good to be true. I don't believe that stuff is too good to be true, because I believe there are good people that come together and are all interested in the same end goal. But our loan arrangement, it is the lowest interest rate we have. As you mentioned, the only collateral is the panels themselves. And then the prepayment, there is no prepayment penalty. As far as executing the documents, it has been one of the simplest loan arrangements that we have put into place here at VCC. So I'm very appreciative of that.
That's great. And then anything else that you wanted to share about, for folks in the audience who may be starting? I see some of the questions sound like some folks are starting at the very beginning of their journey, understanding about, how solar panels work, and maybe anything you wish you would have known at the beginning, or lessons learned through the experience.
So I would say one thing that was confirmed for me as we went through this process is, like I said earlier, find an expert you trust and utilize their expertise. We all have very busy days that probably don't have room for a lot of research on the benefits of solar, the cost of solar, all the engineering requirements, etc. So us partnering with experts at the onset, they did the legwork and it's been great. The other thing that I would suggest, so if you can see on the rooftop of the building that doesn't have solar on it, The main reason we weren't able to put any solar on the roof there is all the little boxes you see, which I believe are air conditioning units. So as you design new buildings, as we design new buildings, I'm certainly going to take care to allow the room for solar on the roofs. I wish I would have known that before. The building, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but right here to the right, those, yes, those large rows of, I guess, air conditioning units, it made it impossible for us. And that's a fairly new building. We built that in 2012. It made it impossible for us to put solar on the top of that building. So that would be my lesson learned. Plan ahead.
Excellent. Let's get to some of the audience questions. There's lots of great questions in here, and please continue to submit those questions and we'll go through them together. I'll kind of run through some of the quick ones here. Has Collective Sun done projects in Michigan? Yes. Is there a minimum installation size or cost? Our minimum is 50 kW on the system size. That roughly translates to, around 125,000, 150,000, depending on where you are in the country. But there are, on a case-by-case basis, we can look at projects that are smaller. Is there recording available? Yes, of course. After the webinar, you'll be getting a copy of the recording and slides and a recap. Have we done work in Pennsylvania? Yes, we've done projects in Pennsylvania. The life of the solar equipment. Will we need to budget for replacement of panels, et cetera, in future years? Great question. In a traditional solar project, you have solar panels that are warranted for 25 years. Those are static objects, but there are inverters that convert the DC electricity to AC, and those inverters will need to be replaced. We include in these projects or require that the installer include, because they don't always include it, a 20-year extended warranty on that equipment. So it's, effectively, covered for those first 20 or 25 years for all the warranties to avoid having surprises somewhere down the road. So panels don't automatically stop working at the end of year 25. We expect, they will continue for many years to go. But since those warranty periods on panels are 25 years, that's what we use in our financial modeling, just to be conservative. So thank you for that question. And please reach out to us if you'd like some additional basic solar education. There was a question about eligibility for tax credits. So correct, today, under the current tax law, nonprofits are not able to utilize tax benefits. We are able to monetize those tax benefits with a structure called a solar power agreement. We can tell you all about that. There is pending legislation that could change that. And so if there are changes, we will certainly modify accordingly so that we can pass through even more benefits to nonprofits. Another question about minimum project sizes, which we covered. If a nonprofit contractor has a contract, if you've already selected your contractor, you've been in this process for a year and have the team meetings and the board approval, you've already picked your contractor, can we waive the multiple bid process? The point of the multiple bid process is to ensure capital efficiency. We want to make sure nonprofits are being protected. And, the best way to do that is with a robust competitive bidding process. But if you've already gone through that process, we're not going to make you repeat it. That's not the point of that exercise. The point of that exercise is to ensure that you're achieving the best deal possible, and we want to support that effort. So if you've already gone through that effort, we can. We're not going to make you start at the beginning, of course. What other questions do we have here? Can you pay back the loan on an accelerated basis? Yes. There's no prepayment penalties whatsoever. Somebody asks about the first step to get 3 possible contractors. Exactly. So if you are interested in solar, the first step is to go get 3 bids. And if you don't know solar installers in your area, or you need help in that process, we absolutely can help you find those contractors and absolutely can help support you in the process of identifying not just installers, but understanding the information that they return to you, making sense of it, and helping you make those decisions. One question about the EV loan program, I guess I would ask Kathleen, defer to Kathleen. If you'd like to learn more, reach out to BQuest.
Yes, absolutely. The slide that's on the screen, Kathleen at bequestfoundation.org. We'd love to talk with you about the EV loan program.
There's a question about farmland and farmhouses. Any 501c3 entity will qualify for the the Sun for All Solar Fund, this loan mechanism. If you're not a 501c3, depending on the structure of your organization, there are other tools that are available, and Collective Sun is happy to help you with your solar journey. But this particular program is specifically for 501c3s. There's some questions about smaller projects and how to approach those. Feel free to reach out, and we can always provide pointers and recommendations. There are questions. If you're a potential impact investor and you'd like to learn more about how to participate, please do reach out and we can share some of those documents and the methods for your participation. Question about timeline. So do the projects have to be done in 2021, or can it be in a later year? They do not have to be completed in 2021. So this is a rolling program. In fact, if you apply today, we wouldn't expect it to be done in 2021. That would be a very aggressive timetable. These unless you're at the very end of your process, of course. So don't be concerned with that. If you are interested in solar, regardless of where you are in your journey, I'd encourage you just to apply and reach out to us. There's other questions about aggregation of projects. If there's multiple projects, can they, add up? Please do reach out to us. We'd like to explore that. Someone asked, what's the difference between a PPA and an SPA? So without getting into a technical nerdy accounting talk, one is a power purchase agreement and the other is a prepaid lease type of structure. And I'd encourage you to reach out to me and would love to whiteboard it with you together. Confirming that the nonprofit owns the solar panel systems and that this is not a lease rental arrangement. So that's a great question, and it depends on the pending outcome of this legislation. So we are going to advance whichever structure generates the most financial benefits for the nonprofit. Under certain provisions of this pending legislation, that could be the nonprofit owning. Under certain provisions, it could be a third party owning. But regardless of how it works out, there's going to be a benefit from tax credits, and there's going to be a loan to cover the difference. And so those are really the key takeaways. And if you're watching the web archive, reach out because we'll probably have the answers to those questions pending this legislative activity that's happening today. There's a question about a grant to cover the loan. Could we utilize that to repay? Yeah, absolutely. Keep in mind that we're going to cover a portion with tax benefits and a portion with a loan. But if you want to, let's say, get a grant for 10%, that can be factored in and just makes the loan size a little bit smaller. I mean, there's lots of creative ways to approach this. If you're looking at grants as a potential solution instead of a loan, I'd encourage you to just get started now. Apply for the loan. If you get the grant later, pay off the loan. There's no prepayment penalty. But these projects are measured in months, if not years. And so there's no point to delay the savings that a nonprofit can enjoy. If we can launch the project, start the process, and then there's potential windfall grants or donations that come to the nonprofit, that's fantastic. But don't delay the savings would be my message. If you have any other questions, please submit them as we're chatting here. But I believe we have a couple minutes left. Kathleen, is there anything else that you would like to add about impact investing or BQuest activities, or the notion? I'm particularly interested in the recycling of funds component to all this, and the notion of how This is a little different than a grant. I mean, there's grants and there's impact investments, and how do you approach those?
Yeah, so what we really like to talk about when we talk about that recycling of funds is to start at the beginning where Lee was, which was that these projects are cash flow positive from day one. So we want to be sure that the kind of cost savings that Michelle talked about and Lee put up in the slide, that you recognize that you are simply trading your electric bill for a loan payment. You're not making the electric bill payment and the loan payment at the same time. So that's why this recycling of funds makes so much sense, because the solar endowment that Lee talks about is providing the cost savings to the nonprofit to be able to invest in that long-term solar endowment. And secondarily, as those payments come back, we're able then to reinvest them right away in more solar projects. I think everybody recognizes that we are at a crisis point in terms of this climate change and this crisis that we are facing, and we can't get enough solar on buildings quickly enough. When you look at a project the size of Vista Community Clinic, that project has so much more of an impact immediately than solar on individual homes. We want both, of course, but these big projects are really going to help our environment more quickly, and being able to turn those payments and reinvest them in new projects is really our goal. So as Lee said, we have funded, I think on one of the slides, there was an indication that we've funded already 8 to 10 projects, and we've got additional funding now for that next 8 to 10 to 12 projects. So, obviously depending on the size of the project. So we want to keep recycling those funds, and that's why the impact investing model, the program-related investment loans, is the model that we use. A lot of nonprofits would love to see this come through as grants, but again, if it's trading off a loan payment for your electric payment, it probably feels a little bit like a grant, because you're getting that solar power for free after 10 years when you make that investment. Michelle, you're our finance person, and I want to make sure I'm correctly identifying that opportunity.
Yes, absolutely, Kathleen. And as I mentioned, the forecast, we are actually experiencing a greater delta between what we are not paying on electricity and what we're paying on the loan today. So absolutely, you're trading one for the other in the short term, and then you have this great project that's a value and up for your organization into the future.
And I'm sure
you
Michelle,
an extra party space on the roof.
That's right.
And when we first talked with Michelle about this program, I know Michelle said to me at the time that she really loved the idea that those payments she was making to us would then just be turned around and add more projects, solar projects for others. And Michelle actually even made referrals to us to other community clinics, which were other projects that we engaged in our second and third round of funding. So as you get your project going, let us know if there are others you'd like us to talk with.
And ultimately for VCC and for others, those are dollars that get recycled back into the mission and advancing the mission of the nonprofit and doing more good in the communities. And that's the power, the dual benefit of these solar projects. We're creating an environmental benefit, and we're financially strengthening these nonprofits that are so important to the social fabric of our communities. With that, I think there's one or two other quick questions, and one of them can probably be answered by the next slide. But what one of the questions was whether or not the loan, if somebody used reserves to do part of the loan, does that change the tax benefit? The answer is no. The tax benefit is going to be based on the cost of the system, not on how we finance or what percentage comes from this loan or from reserves. And then the last question was, how do we get started? Who do we apply to? Are there separate applications? No, this is just sunforall.com. The application is there. Funding is open on a rolling basis. And we would welcome you to apply or reach out to us if you'd like to learn more. So with that, I think I'll hand it back over to Lindsay to close and say a tremendous thank you to Michelle and Kathleen for joining us today. Really appreciate your participation.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all so much for joining us today. What a wonderful presentation. Please, if you have any questions, follow up with anyone that were on the webinar.
All right, folks, thank you for enduring that. So we're a little early on time here, so I'm going to take a break and try to get a hold of Carrie, and then we will resume for part 2 around 1 o'clock. He does have a presentation he'd like to share, so we'll get that recorded. And then if you guys have any questions, contact information is going to be out there. So I want to give another shout out to Colleen Fisk and REAP for the work they're doing. I'll give a shout out to Collective Sun for the work they're doing. I also want to make sure that we give a shout out to Solar on Earth, who was our main sponsor this year, as well as Alascorp, who is also a sponsor. And I want to give a shout out to Spirit of Alaska, who has been a sponsor in the past, and who is, in addition to having their own solar system on their buildings, they're also doing some solar loans and financing. And as we mentioned before, it's all great to have these conversations, but if you can't find the finance the project, then that's the challenge. So that's the challenge we're trying to turn into a solution. So anyway, thank you for joining us. This has been part 1 of the 2021 Alaska Solar Tour, and we'll reconvene at 1 o'clock. Thank you. Stay beautiful, people.